And intense debate remains amongst EU officials about the size of their bailout capacity. Join me today to discuss this alongside the many challenges that lie ahead for some of the European economies is Hervé Prettre from Credit Suisse. Hervé, great to have you in the studio.
Thank you for the invite, as usual.
Now, as we know, Germany does not want to increase the size of the European Stability Mechanism past the 500 billion euros that they already have planned, whereas other European leaders and the IMF disagree. What are your thoughts on this debate?
Well, that's no surprise because Germany is the largest contributor. Angela Merkel is facing some electoral challenge this year, and as you know, the German population is against giving free German money to other countries. And actually, if you think about the more financial rationale behind it, Germany has one big fear, would come to the conclusion that do what you want with your budget. Germany is there to support the program, so we finance the banks, buy the bonds on the market, and so on. So at some point, for this fear not to materialize, Germany needs to be very clear. It's going to be up a certain level, and we're not going to increase it. Otherwise, this moral hazard introduced into the management of Southern European countries might lead to more and more freedom in their budget and not the kind of restructuring Germany wants.
Okay. Well, another lingering question is whether the European Financial Stability Facility should remain active or actually shut down as soon as the ESM is launched.
Well, actually part of the SFS will be turned into the ESM, and the ESM is actually the next step about some kind of European monetary mechanism with more fiscal union, more consensus about the budgets. I think the big question is it too early to move to the ESM, as the ESFS has not still fixed all the problem? At some point, there is no other choice, because if you keep the ESFS in its current form, you will be bailing out countries, you will be helping their banks. Yes. But what about the next step to mend their budget, their fiscal situation? We need to move, and there is no other choice.
Well, following the latest ECB LTRO, isn't there a possibility that with the ECB giving out cheap liquidity, that some banks could actually become dependent on the ECB cheap liquidity?
Oh, some of them are already. But actually, here too, in the short term, there is no big choice. If you want to avoid some wave from the Greek and Portuguese situation turning into some banks risking being at bankruptcy, you need to finance them at a cheap level. I think the key element this year will be the implementation of the Basel III rules, where banks will be forced to beef up their Tier 1 ratio, their core Tier 1 ratio, and at this point, they will present some much stronger balance sheet. We had it already. Look at UniCredit's capital increase at year start. Look at UBS results, where they stated that they reduce risk-weighted assets by half, and so on and so on. This is to prepare Basel III. Once Basel III is passed and we know that the banks have beefed up their balance sheet, then at this point, the question will make sense to say, will those banks, will we be able to unplug part of this capital flow to those banks to avoid them to do some cheap financing and risk placing their money where they shouldn't? Yeah. I don't think this is likely to happen. Banks will be stronger after Basel III. Interest rate, it was necessary to give cheap financing, but it's not going to last forever.
Let's discuss Greece. Now, we've just seen the largest sovereign debt restructuring actually in history. Now, Greece still remains a humongous question mark. At the same time, to get their rescue loans, they've had to enact harsh austerity measures. These harsh austerity measures, they almost seem like they're almost impossible to carry through, you know, in the coming years. With Greece, is it not like we're just kicking the can a little bit further on down the road?
Well, don't forget that all this is not to help Greece, but help Europe and its banks. Now, coming up to Greece, which is, the second priority. That's true, it's some 1930s remedy that is being given to Greece. And the big failing point about all those rescue plans are some growth components. How can you quick start growth? The problem with Greece is that as you mentioned, it will be very hard to cope with those austerity measures. There will be no money for investment to turn the country into some new growth pattern. I think in the coming 2 to 3 years, there will be a depression in Greece, very deep economic cut. And frankly, I don't know where Greece can find some growth momentum. Okay, you might state that they cut their salary by the basic salary by 22%, even for young people by 32%, but it's still not competitive. You know how much a Greek employee in industry is paid per hour? $22. That's 13 in Portugal, that's 7 in Lithuania, and less in Romania, Bulgaria. I mean, cheap labor is not going to be for tomorrow. So frankly, we can't find any growth pattern for Greece, and Greece will likely end up in the 1930s crisis where unemployment will still rise, and we don't know what's going to happen to them. But Europe will be protected.
Thank you very much, Hervé. Some very interesting points you've made there. Now, later on Dukascopy TV, we'll be speaking to Hervé again about Spain, the new fiscal pact, and also the upcoming French elections, so stay tuned.